Well, hello, and welcome to an Arknights Operator's Mediocre guide featuring Iris, the bouncy, eepy, dreamy-looking fairy from the stories. Supposedly. Or maybe she just does a series of ASMR arts casting to fall asleep to.
Because there is a market for this kind of content, you know?
And now that I've lost most of the audience, you're welcome by the way, I can go over Iris' subclass, the Mystic Caster. It has a slightly longer attack range, a slower attacking rate, and an ability to store up to 3 charges when there's no enemies in range. When attacking while having stored charges, they all launch at the target. The charging itself is great for making use of idleness, so you don't lose out on as much damage when the operator isn't attacking. Our talent for today is a little difficult to understand, so I'll try my best to explain it here. Stored attacks deal more damage. Yup, that's it. It just encourages the subclass's charging up bit, and you're rewarded with bigger numbers. The Fairy Tail Guardian's first skill does 3 things for 5 seconds. At the cost of only dealing half damage, the attack range of Iris narrows as well as slightly extends, and her time between attacks is majorly reduced. So you might be looking at that clip and thought to yourself, wow, this skill is kind of underwhelming. But what if I told you you're probably not going to use it as a damaging skill anyways? I mean, you can, to mop up weak enemies, but you saw that pitiful damage, right? Skill 1 is quick, but the thing about attack speed modifiers and Mystic Casters is, it also applies to when the operators store an attack, if there's no enemy in range. That means that during the very short 5-second skill duration, Iris can gain all her charges and fire it off at full blast at the next enemy, talent boost included. To compare, Iris will take around 3 seconds per shot for a total of 9 if you want the full 3 charges. In that sense, the thinned up range is actually a blessing since you don't want the charges to fire off during that skill duration due to the half damage penalty. To make best use of this skill, position strategically and charge those stored attacks. Skill 2 puts 2 enemies in range to sleep for 7 seconds. Probably showed them some audio roleplay, meeting a catgirl caster on the battlefield. Tags, soft-spoken, sleep aid, enemies to lovers, wholesome. How do I know of this stuff? Anyways, after waking up from the Dreamland's cradle, they are detonated, dealing up to 300% arts damage in a small area. Oh, the ever so rare sleep status effect. So obviously there is Sleepknights synergy, with the small handful of other sleep-related operators, but even without the EP strategy, Iris can still stand on her own. Similar to skill 1, Iris isn't really built to deal with groups of enemies, but at least she has a better time damaging a group of them with skill 2. Worst case, you've just stalled a couple enemies for 7 seconds. The sleep does wear off before the explosion triggers, so if the sleeping targets are near enough to each other, they will be hit by both hits. Given there are no other enemies in range, the sleep duration is enough to store 2 attacks before unloading on any survivors of the blast. If you want to buff up the damage of the blast, attack buffs scale well here. And about the sleep debuff itself, many enemies, a good number of them being bosses, are immune to the effects, so just watch out for that.
So I forgot to mention that there's actually a cool tech you can do with skill 2, where if you don't feel like unloading the charge shots on the first enemy that walks into range, you can actually activate skill 2 before that happens to put them to sleep, so that the next enemy that walks into range can take the stored hits.
To unlock Iris' full potential, you probably need at least the first level of this module, cause it gives the operator +1 on the stored charge limit for a total of 4. A simple upgrade for extra potential damage, for if Iris is just standing around a lot. Skill 1's quick charging is still good enough to get all 4 charges from nothing as well. The talent upgrade itself is not as massive, but it's still a damage upgrade nonetheless, and you can get a bit of arts resistance, which you don't see that commonly in a module. So, how do we use Iris MR? Yeah, that was a bit of a stretch. Once you've gotten used to using the Mystic Caster, you more or less have an idea what to do. Iris is more built to take on tougher enemies, so you probably don't want to waste your charged up shots on a random mob. You may work around this by deploying Iris in a lane with not as many enemies running around, or having other operators to reduce those numbers before they reach our caster. With the sleep affliction, you can't really damage them while they're asleep, with some exceptions. But since those enemies will be effectively not there for a whole 7 seconds, it might give you enough time to react and make a play if you have to. It could be waiting for a skill to charge up, readying your fast redeploy operators to drop in, the classic stalling strats, or just, watching them die after the 7 seconds, who knows. And of course, I'll mention the Sleep Knight strategy here. If you're somehow able to get a couple of other operators that inflict sleep, you can chain sleep effects together. And if you get the right setup going, you can perma-sleep enemies until they die of, They'll die eventually. When you get the setups and timings right, it is fun to watch threatening enemies snooze to death. Finally, here are Iris' stats, potentials, trust bonus, base skills, and my E264M3 Iris, ready to bombard friends as well as foes with sleep-inducing arts. And that was the Iris guide. For those going to sleep soon, allow me to, not help with that.
Thank you for watching, everyone. I don't know why this is the main joke of the video, but here we are.